I think a lot of people feel that if you were meant to create art, it just somehow magically comes from within and you know immediately that you're meant to create art. We live in a society right now that only showcases perfection, and that's what we're seeing online. And sometimes that can be a deterrent to creating. So instead of focusing on a deterrent to creating, I wanted to share with you 5 signs that you are meant to create and encourage you to either start or continue on your journey for creating art. I think the first sign that you are meant to create art is that you keep coming back to art, regardless of taking a break from it. You are drawn back to it eventually, and once you get back to it, it's such a great feeling to create. Whether we know it or not, we're letting out from within us our feelings, thoughts, emotions, perceptions. It's all going out on the paper. I do think that when you see someone's art, it is a reflection of them and how they see themselves. Those of us who are drawn to create and are meant to create, we will always come back to art, whatever that looks like. So it's just this internal drive to create and experiment and basically have fun. But at the same time that you're doing that, you are processing all your emotions and feelings, however that comes out. We are creating art for the sake of creating art, for the internal joy that it brings us, and for not just the joy that it brings us, but it's not just joy. There are so many benefits to it. You are sitting alone with your own self, processing your own emotions. You're not on the phone, you're not watching TV. You're taking much needed time that you deserve for yourself to process things going on around you and within you and letting it go. You're putting it on the paper and you're letting it go and putting it out there. I think that's really, really critical. And many people have other ways of doing that. But if you are meant to create art, then that is your pathway to, I don't know, processing the world around you. The second sign that you're meant to create art is that art affects you emotionally. Some people see a painting and they just see a painting. Other people see art and you feel all sorts of feelings. It brings something out within you. Again, similar to the creating when you're seeing art. When I go to the art gallery and I see paintings, and you're not supposed to touch them, so I don't touch them. However, I do get a close-up look. I want to look at the lines. I want to look at the textures. I want to look at the colors. It doesn't matter what kind of art it is. I was at the art gallery recently because I wanted to do a video on all the different ways that we see faces represented in art. But when I got to the art gallery, there was this whole thing on textile art, and it was so fascinating. I love textures, layers, lines, colors, all the different ways that people create. And so while you walking through the art gallery may be like the most amazing thing, right? You're feeling all the feelings, you're fascinated by what's going on, on the canvases or the textile art or whatever it is. There's other people that, wouldn't want to go with you to an art gallery because to them it's like watching paint dry. The third sign that you're meant to create art is that you see things differently than others. I think the more I get into creating art, I notice that I see a lot of things differently, especially when you're out and about walking around, whether you're, out in the morning or at night. I like looking at colors and shadows. I am drawn to the color palette of Mother Nature in a way, especially when you look at the sunsets and you look at like all the different blues and yellows and oranges and pinks and purples and how it all goes together. Some people look at a sunset and they appreciate the sunset because it's a sunset. And then I think others will look at this. For me personally, I feel like it's a color palette, and Mother Nature can't be wrong when it comes to the color palette. So I kind of am drawn to how basically looking at all the different colors and all the different seasons too. And even when you look like at a snowy day, it's not just white, it's white and gray and blue and all these different colors. So I will say you see things differently. For me, it comes out when I see things differently in nature, but I'm also starting to notice like shapes and forms differently. So that's another sign that you're meant to create. I will also say the more you create, the more you're drawn to create. If you expect perfection the minute you sit down to create and what you're imagining doesn't come out onto the paper, you're doing yourself a disservice, because then you quit and become frustrated. Where the more you create, the more self-acceptance comes in, the more you allow and give yourself grace to make mistakes without the negative self-talk that can often come with the creative process. So creating art teaches you a lot of things. For me, it teaches me that perfection is not required. It teaches me to give myself grace and the ability to create without this need for constant perfection. And I've learned a lot of things, such as sometimes imperfection is so much more beautiful than a perfect artwork. And the whole process behind creating is a gift. And for those of us that are meant to create art, the end result is not this magical, beautiful drawing or painting. It's the gift you've given yourself from creating, but also all the lessons learned through the process of creating, not just the end result. And if you keep doing it and you're drawn to it, even if you are so upset with your first try or second try or third try, you start to actually gain self-confidence and faith that whatever comes out is meant to come out, and it's okay if it's not perfect. So that's the third sort of sign that you're meant to create differently, is that you see things differently. I got on a tangent there, but I think it's really important to understand that art teaches us a lot through the process of creation and not the end result. The fourth one, I think it's the fourth one I kind of touched on, is that, you feel this need to express yourself regardless, it's just an intuitive thing that you feel the need to express yourself. And I think that will evolve over time. For me, when it first started, the need to express myself was just simply drawing with a Sharpie marker. And that has evolved over the past 12 years. It was Sharpie marker, painting. Painting for me came it was much more challenging to learn how to paint than it was for me to draw. Drawing for me was just something that I never stopped doing. Drawing for me was just something that was so enjoyable. The level of frustration was less because I could just turn the page. Where painting, trying to paint what you drew, super hard for me. So it's just, I think you will find this need to express yourself, but also expressing yourself in different ways is okay. You could try painting, you could try drawing, you could try sketching, you could try anything, textile art, whatever it is that you're drawn to do, but you're drawn to express and not always, not just consume. So when I say consume, I don't mean buy in this scenario. I mean consume as in you're not just watching art, you're not just like scrolling through looking at art, you just have this innate need to pick up a pen or pencil and start drawing. You have this innate need to grab a sketchbook and scribble, or pick up a paintbrush and paint, whatever that looks like for you. So even if you don't feel ready, you're called to create. Final sign that you are meant to create is that maybe you doubt yourself and you don't feel ready, and there's all this hesitation, but you do it anyway. And I encourage anyone who has that feeling that they want to create and they have this desire to create, but there's something stopping you because you have this need for perfection, which isn't, I would say, an internal thing. I think that's what's presented to us online. Perfection seems to be something that society has taught us for whatever reason. And as social media has exploded, and with AI and everything else, it just seems like we are looking at a world that is, I would say, fake perfect, while we might see online everything perfect. In real life, nothing's perfect. Nothing at all is perfect. And so don't get caught in the trap of thinking that your art is bad, your process is wrong. If you are going online and consuming what you're seeing there, there's too much of this need for fake perfection or aesthetic, and not enough showing that it's okay to create, and the whole purpose of creating is not the end result. It's all the gifts that you are given as you continue on your journey of drawing and painting and creating art. It changes you as a person, because all these things that I'm saying are signs that you're meant to create, are also things that you learn along the way. So you might have these signs in like little, you might see glimpses of these signs, but as you push forward and you're pulled to pick up whatever art supplies you have and create whatever you're going to create, and if you give yourself permission to play, and permission to make mistakes, and permission to make art that's imperfect or that you don't even like, if you give yourself permission, you're eventually going to find the way, and you're eventually going to learn to love your art. And I will say this. There's that saying that you walk down the path and the path will, show up. In any situation where you're jumping into an unknown, such as creating art, you're sitting down and you've got a blank piece of paper. The path will show itself once you start playing around. If you never pick up a pencil or pen and create, then the path will never show itself. But again, for the people who are meant to create, you will always have this sort of internal drive to do that. You may find yourself doodling, drawing. You're going to see the world differently. But as you walk down that path, it gets stronger and stronger. The longer I do this, the stronger that internal drive to create art has presented itself. And when I first got on YouTube, I had no idea what, I had an idea, but it's, again, you get on a path and it starts presenting itself as you're walking down it. But when it comes to the signs to create art, just keep them in mind. I mean, anyone who's watching this right to the end, you are meant to create art. Like, obviously, you are meant to create art. I hope that this resonates with you. But I do also want to stress that if you are meant to create art, it's not about being the most talented. It's not about perfection. It's not about being naturally skilled. You don't have to be perfect in any way, shape, or form. You don't need to have everything figured out, and you're not meant to have everything figured out. You're walking down this path of creating. You are drawn to it and you are called back to it. And that's all that there is to that. You are meant to create when you're called to create, when that internal drive pushes you to create, regardless of what the end result is. If you constantly have that internal drive, then I encourage you to keep creating, because the more you create, the more freedom you provide yourself, the more confidence you get, the more consistent you become. And I will say it personally, creating makes me a happier person overall. So I think that's all I have with the 5 signs that you are meant to create art. If I missed any, I'd love to hear from you what you believe is a sign for you that you are meant to create art. Maybe being meant to create art isn't about proving anything more than recognizing something within yourself, recognizing that internal drive to create. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. I hope you all have a wonderful day and happy creating, however that looks for you.